Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Illuminating Microsoft 365, the collaborative webinar for PAIT Group and Joy of SharePoint. We are so thrilled you are here. We have so much to talk about. It has been an action-packed couple of weeks. Ignite, Richard, I don't know, but I feel like this was one of the most exciting Ignites we've had in a while.
Absolutely.
So much good stuff came out, and we've got our favorites, which means we can't go through everything, but we're definitely going to loop you in on what we feel were the biggest ones for our intelligent intranets, and we're going to talk through why we think they're going to be so fantastic. If you've never joined us before, I am Joy Apple. I'm with PAIT Group. I am a modern workplace strategist and a trainer, and I get to host the Joy of SharePoint webinar series. I have with me Richard Calderon, my workplace twin at PAIT Group. Richard, how is your day going?
Going really well, Let us not forget, though, absolute new exciting accolades for Joy as a recently anointed Microsoft MVP for Office 365 services and applications. Congratulations to you, Joy. It's super exciting.
Thank you.
And well-deserved, without question. So yeah, as Joy mentioned, we are both modern workplace strategists here at PAIT. What that means is our role is entirely focused around customer success for helping identify ways in which your business is trying to address all of the ongoing challenges that are going on in today's modern world. And of course, how does Microsoft 365 apply to that? So everything from getting up Microsoft Teams up and running to driving user adoption for that, intranets and business process improvements, any and all those above. Those are the types of things that we try to help focus on, and it's also why we wanted to continue having these webinar series with you, because we love just sharing what we know with you. So what we typically do in these types of webinars is we always at least want to get a little bit of info from you, because we just think it's fun to understand a little bit about who's in the room and some of your experiences. So we do have a poll. If you would, please, we'd appreciate anybody who's attending to go ahead and just fill out a couple of basic questions here, and you can get to that link. It's in the Q&A window for today's webinar. And other than some of the obvious, which is just who's who in the audience here today, a couple of things we wanted to know is, did you get a chance to actually attend the Ignite 2020 virtual event? Super exciting, because they completely just democratized Ignite this year. Whereas traditionally it's a physical conference, and you have to pay for the admission and obviously get yourself there wherever it's going to be. This year they made it entirely free and all online, and so that was really, really cool, because people who maybe would not have had a chance to be able to attend could just jump in and be able to get all the benefits of learning what's new from Microsoft along with everyone else. So just interested to know if you did or didn't attend, or if you've had a chance to watch any of the session recordings, and then just kind of in general categories, what kinds of announcements around Microsoft 365, if you did get a chance to attend or listen to some of the recordings, that you're most excited about. Again, we cherry picked a number of the ones from across these different categories that were most exciting to us, and that's what we wanted to talk about today. And then lastly, I was interested to know if your organization has yet had a chance to change from where your Teams meeting recordings are stored, as opposed to being stored in Microsoft Stream, to actually changing them to where they're stored in OneDrive for Business or SharePoint. And so interested to know if that's something you've done yet or not. And if not, we're going to talk a little bit more about that briefly here today. So if that's new to you, if you're like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? We'll also talk about that, because that's one of my favorites for sure. So let's take a quick look at some of the responses here. So again, thanks for letting us know who's here. We've got about 7 responses so far. About a couple of people who had a chance to see some of these sessions, and some of those, the rest of you that are all on your list of things to do. Again, it's great because they're all available on demand. You can go to Microsoft's virtual hub now and really get a chance to just kind of walk all the way through all these Ignite sessions. A lot of the technical content that's out there on the virtual hub. So it looks like new experiences from Teams, not surprising at all. Again, for any of you that have been in our webinars know that Joy and I live, sleep, eat, breathe Microsoft Teams all day, every day. And so we love and are super excited about these enhancements as well. And then a couple here about innovations in Microsoft Search. Great. And then some others, again, that we're going to talk about here today. And then looks like no one has. And again, we're going to talk a little bit more about what this means for those of you that are kind of like, wait, what is that? What are you talking about? We're going to talk about that. We got a little bullet point on one of the slides for that. So again, thanks for filling out the poll. And for those that are jumping in at any point, feel free to just go ahead and respond to the poll at any point whenever you get a chance. So thanks for that.
I just wanted to add to that wait, what response was totally mine when I heard the announcement during.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a big change for the way things have worked with meeting recordings in Teams all this time, but it's for the better, actually. So again, we'll talk some more about that. Oh, actually, do you want to go ahead and grab the control here,
Sure.
Joy, on your end? Take over. Okay.
I'll share. Sharing is caring. Are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. So everybody that's joining online, I'm going to give you the same warning that I gave my coworkers earlier. I'm trying a new tea that's supposed to help increase focus. And I think it does that by getting you completely jacked up on caffeine. So Richard and Stacy are here to help me not talk through of all this in 90 seconds. Yeah. So, welcome to the show. So well, if you know me on social media, I am Joy of SharePoint, right? So of course, I felt the need to kick off SharePoint announcements because there is some stuff that's coming and it is cool as cats. And if you don't know, cats are really cool, right? So the SharePoint App Bar, that's huge for me. I think that's fantastic. That, and I'm going to jump to the fourth bullet point here, the associated hubs. Anything that helps us bring together our architecture inside of the internet, I think that's a plus. Richard, when they first started saying, hey, no subsites, everything's a top level site, what was your impression of that initial announcement?
Yeah, it was such a big shift in architecture from the way SharePoint had always been traditionally with site collections and then subsites. Those of you that came from that background and know about it from the developer side, they were referred to as webs. You had sites and webs in the whole site collection realm. But yeah, my reaction was kind of like, well, okay, that could potentially get a little hairy now, with all these sites. Now we've got, however many hundreds and thousands of sites possibly. But yeah, it was a big change.
Big change. But they have gone and given us really great features, hub sites being the main one, to be able to sort of kind of get that global navigation back. But now, coming soon, right, we're going to have official, real global navigation. I'm super excited about that. Yeah. I'm also very, very, very excited about site templates. Richard and I actually talk with each other about this quite a bit. We try not to say the T word, templates, because it's not really a thing today for SharePoint sites. Buckle your seatbelts. It looks like it's coming pretty soon.
Yeah, and it's sort of like the, what was once old is now new again kind of thing. Because again, for those of you that came from a SharePoint background and were doing this stuff with SharePoint on premises before, there were really a number of different ways to be able to create site templates, some that were a little easier, some that required a little bit more kind of the coding side of things, but you could create templates in the past and then be able to get those stood up pretty quick. And then of course, moving into the cloud, Microsoft was like, no templates. You kind of got to use what's out of the box, quote unquote. So glad that they're finally, yeah, glad that they're getting to this point. Super exciting.
Super exciting. And of course, expanding the capabilities of headers and footers, especially the footer in my mind is a big deal. That was always a custom request in the on-prem side of the world. Super stoked to see that coming. Also, ladies and gentlemen, if you have really been wanting an out-of-the-box option for an org chart web part, it's coming soon.
Yay.
Happy about that. Yay.
Yeah.
We get that request quite a bit. My feed is coming. Audience targeting. That's going to be Christmas. I should have done a slide on it, but I didn't. But I think it's pretty self-explanatory. You're going to be able to target content on the page at particular people, not just your news articles, which we can do now with metadata in the Pages library, but quick links and events. We can now have some audience targeting on. Well, we can do that in the navigation now, which is phenomenal. It's been 6 months now, or maybe longer since that's got turned on.
Yeah.
But this is going to really help us focus content at the correct people. Just please remember, audience targeting is not security. That might be a webinar one day.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those aspects around a employee portal intranet site that companies have just been asking for more and more personalization over time. And of course, in the cloud now, where you have the Microsoft Graph, there is a lot of that experience that can be more personalized to you, like Microsoft Search. No two search results are the same based on two different people. But having that ability to now target content in these different web parts now, in addition to navigation and so forth, that's really going to help drive that personalization, because you can focus on based on someone's role or based on someone's geolocation, what region are they in or what department they're in and so forth. You can focus and target a lot of that content so it's more personalized and more meaningful.
Absolutely.
I have a question.
Okay.
On audience targeting, is it going to be just for Office 365 groups and not
on-prem groups? I think so. What they meant there.
Yeah. So
to be determined. At the moment, you can do M365 groups. Okay. If I misspeak, don't get angry, but I believe it's M365 groups, individuals, and I thought you could use Active Directory groups as well.
Yeah. I mean, I
as
believe
long as it's in your Azure AD.
Right. Yeah, I believe so, Lisa, Joe. I think I think this audience targeting is definitely going to be focused on those groups that can be targeted that have been, however they've gotten into Azure Active Directory. So assuming that you're either synchronizing groups from on-prem Active Directory, or if you're creating Microsoft 365 groups, then those are the types that can be targeted. So she responded back with a comment that said permission groups. Not sure about that, to be honest with you. I don't know the permission groups in SharePoint. Yeah.
Well, we can find out.
We can definitely find out. We can do more digging and find out for you. Yep. Absolutely.
We're also seeing, and there are a couple of these that Richard and I were like, do we put some of these things on the SharePoint slide or the Teams slide that's coming up?
Yeah.
But we're going to be able to share our SharePoint news to Teams or Yammer. So we're seeing Microsoft really getting on board with, I think, us as the people that use these tools in our day in, day out activities. We have a need to bring the intranet into Teams, because Teams is such a hub for teamwork, right? We're getting used to living there, but we can't let SharePoint go, because that's what gives us all of our other stuff, right? So we're going to be able to bring the news from SharePoint into Teams. We're going to be able to have our corporately branded news digest. So it's not just that see all link that you can email out from news. Be able to brand it to your corporate brand. I think that's going to be really great. And coming soon, we will be able to schedule when the news page gets published. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's going to be great. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
And then SharePoint Syntax. Ooh, it's exciting. AI is, and I was just talking with a AI MVP earlier today, and she said the struggle that she has is trying to convince people that AI is not out to get you, right? It's friendly. And this is going to be one way where AI and machine learning come and help us interpret and organize and work with our content. So more to come, because we've got a slide for that. We just wanted to hit a few, but this is a screenshot of how that global navigation will work inside of SharePoint. So this will be the global nav. They've got it on news now, but you notice we've got sites here, and then that looks like a document image. So I'm going to zoom in on that. So we'll have some options here on what we see on our global news. And you see these are coming from various areas. So it's going to know you. It's the graph, right? The all-powerful graph that sees the sites you have access to, the people that you collaborate with the most, the people you're most directly related to on an org chart. And it's going to recommend that content to you, so you don't have to go looking for it. Fantastic.
Yeah, my first reaction when I first saw them demoing that was I thought it was a strange kind of design decision that they had, created it as this sort of thing that pops out from the left-hand side of the browser in that case. But then the more I kind of settled with it and thought a little bit more, I realized that, in fact, that's actually consistent with a lot of the things that Microsoft has placed in the tools and the services as of late. So, for example, in Teams, you have that left-hand rail for all of your personal apps. Yep. That's how you get back and forth. And then recently in the Microsoft 365 homepage, when you go to office.com for that matter, that personalized homepage, there is a app bar on the left again that allows you to get to kind of the most regularly used apps inside of the browser. So again, this really, once I thought about that, it made sense. So now, yeah, yet another really exciting thing with a SharePoint App Bar in this case. So
absolutely,
really, yeah, looking forward to that.
And we're, people are old like me and you. We're used to the concept of the global nav across the top, but that's right. Our hub navigation now, right? So we don't need competing 4 bars down of nav. So yeah, like you said, it took a minute, and then I went, oh, okay. All right, associated hubs. So shameless plug, I have a session that I do quite a bit. In fact, I did it last week in Branson for the Collab Summit, all about hub navigation, re-architecting our intranets, right? And one of the most popular questions, actually it's 2, global navigation, and can you associate a hub site with another hub site? Now today, the answer is no. And I guess actually the more appropriate answer, yesterday the answer was no. Today it's not yet. Because if you notice, if I come in here to the screenshot from Microsoft, it's grayed out here, right? Coming soon. Hub associations, they're going to be limited to 3 levels because you're talking about a hierarchy of search and of content. And we all know the Microsoft world is flat, right? So the flatter, the better. But you will be able to say, well, engineering really needs to be associated with manufacturing. So we can have those hub sites associated for search capabilities. We're even going to have the ability, it's not on the screenshot, but you'll have the ability to manage permissions from the hub level and push it down to the associated sites, not other hubs, sites, if it's appropriate. Lots of options are coming here, and it's really exciting to see. How many times are we going to say the word exciting today? But I think this is going to make things a lot better for those of us that do have a legitimate need for hub sites to be related to each other in some way. All right.
So we did have a question from Matthew Carter. Hey, good morning or good afternoon, Matthew.
Matthew.
Thanks for joining us. I was back on the SharePoint App Bar topic. So he asked, will it be on the app launcher? And I can't recall based on the screenshot. I don't think it's in the launcher. I think it's.
I don't think it is. I think it's just a little like a home icon that's there.
Yeah. Tied into that kind of that SharePoint home site or whichever site in this case. Yeah.
Okay. And then we have Syntax. Richard, this is going to be huge.
Yeah, this is really exciting. This is, if you had been paying attention to what Microsoft had been doing for really the past year or so around content services in SharePoint, they've talked a lot about this Project Cortex. It's kind of this big initiative centered around leveraging artificial intelligence to really help capture the knowledge inside your organization, and then being able to turn that knowledge into actionable, meaningful information for you, obviously. So SharePoint Syntax is the first product, apparently, from the Project Cortex initiative. And Microsoft is likely going to be continuing to evolve that and create more and more products and services on that Project Cortex framework. But essentially what SharePoint Syntax does is it allows you to leverage, again, artificial intelligence, not the Terminator kind of Arnold Schwarzenegger AI, but the friendly AI, to effectively be able to organize content. What you're doing essentially is you're creating these models, these artificial intelligent models that they refer to as document understanding models. And essentially what you're teaching SharePoint Syntax to do is how to read those documents, similar to what a knowledge person who is an expert in that type of document content would be able to read it as. So if you are a contracts processing specialist of some sorts, then you have the ability to read a document and understand what's the total contract value, when was it signed, some other T&Cs information. You can interpret that based off of reading the document. So what you're doing in SharePoint Syntax is actually training the machine, in this case the AI, to understand those similar bits of metadata just like a human would. Super cool. You're basically teaching it that so that then it knows how to recognize that information for you. Maybe you handed a sort of a subset of those documents and you tell it which ones are valid and which ones aren't valid. And then over time, it starts to learn more and more about what the real content is. Then you can send it hundreds and thousands of documents and allow it to automatically tag that content on your behalf, so you don't have to do that work. Once that content is tagged, then you can use that to be able to secure that content for, really the metadata is really the beauty of it all, extracting and pulling out that metadata, because we all know that metadata is critical for all other types of services like Microsoft Search, for example, or tying into Power Automate for creating flows, and obviously information protection, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a really, really super exciting new capability that's actually available now to purchase. I think it went available to purchase as of October 1st, and it's a user-based add-on that is available for commercial customers, I know, at the very least. I'm not sure when it's going to get released up to the government clouds, for example, but it is something you can go and actually purchase today if you're interested.
And I tell you, the metadata is what I'm the most excited about, I think, because as a consultant and trainer, when we're trying to teach people to get out of those folders, first thing they complain about is, you mean I have to go tag this stuff now instead of just dumping it somewhere, right?
Yep.
Yeah, you do. But maybe the answer to that is not for much longer, right? We're going to be able to start making those tasks more automated. And for the labels, thinking of the government, once this is available in the government cloud, so my original background was in a government facility, and we had a situation once where a non-classified document had a word in it, and another non-classified document had another word in it. And both of those being in the same library caused both of those documents to require classification. Right, because the words were very closely associated with each other. So being able to have this capability to go through and go, hey, I'm seeing these words, right? There are rules that have been built, and I'm seeing this may be a violation of those rules, right? Having that capability is going to be huge. Huge.
Definitely. Yeah, especially because, again, the amount of digital content that's being created, the pace is not slowing down. The amount just keeps growing and growing and growing. So having these capabilities to where you don't have to physically go and do all of this stuff manually, and allowing the cloud service to do this on your behalf, just genius, just like magic, basically, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, super exciting. Yeah, super cool.
All right, Teams announcements. And for those of you that haven't, Stephanie, Susan.
So there is a question that goes back to site associations.
Okay.
So do site associations need to be anticipated up front for good design? Is creating an association after a period of implementation maturity going to be a disaster?
I'm going to say no, not a disaster. It's always best to plan ahead as you can, but since I almost feel like we should drop the hub webinar into the chat later.
Yeah.
If you follow the model of flat architecture and you ensure that every site you have is its own standalone site, hubifying a site so other sites can be joined to it. I'm going to say manufacturing. You have a manufacturing site. Typically, it might be like a communication site. And all the general information that everyone in manufacturing should have access to lives on that site. Cool. So you turn that into your hub site. And then you go get the sites, probably team sites, doesn't have to be, that's not a rule. But you go get those sites now that the individual manufacturing plants or teams work in, and you join them to that hub, right? It's still flat, you're not nesting. You're creating, not to reuse a word, but you're creating an association that says all of these join to manufacturing. You get consolidated search experience, and you have the ability to roll up content to that hub site. It's really cool. But where we've kind of been feeling like we needed a little bit more elbow room is perhaps engineering works very closely with manufacturing. It's different sets of permissions, but we have overlap. They share roles, they share information. So we may also need to be able to have almost something like a sub-hub situation happening. But instead of nesting and taking something and building it underneath, we're associating side by side. So they're still standalone sites, but we're telling the intranet, hey, these share some commonality, so we want them to be associated together. So again, that consolidated search can now branch out to engineering as well. There could be roll-ups to engineering as well. There could be membership sharing to engineering as well. I don't know exactly how every little piece of that's going to flesh out, but you're not looking at a disaster because all of your sites are Lego blocks. How cool is that? Because Legos are the best ever, right? Just don't step on them and you're going to be fine. So if you don't like how something is positioned with a hub association, you just pop it off that hub and it can be its own thing, or you can go connect it somewhere else. As long as you're not creating subsites, you're just joining a site to a hub, unjoining when necessary, you're going to be fine. It's going to be work. It'll be a little annoying if you build out this gorgeous hub structure and someone says, no, I don't like it. Fine, right? You can kind of go rework it, but you're not going to build yourself into a corner. So it won't be a disaster. It just may be a little bit of trial and error. So I hope that's helpful. And we'll see about shooting out the link to the hub site webinar recording that we've got, which I'm going to have to update now.
Always, we're constantly updating our content. Yeah. Thank you, Microsoft.
Always. All right. So we're going to hop over to the Teams announcements now. Boy, custom layouts and meetings, breakout rooms and meetings. That's going to be cool. So you'll actually be able to take, if you're in like a huge meeting, you've got like 20 people in there, and you want to have little breakout sessions. Okay, so you 5 are going to go talk about this and figure it out, and you 7 are going to go figure this out. You'll be able to do that within the same meeting. So cool. So cool. Meeting recaps is coming. We'll have all of your assets from a meeting right on one tab. Awesome. I mean, it's just making life easier. Here's the biggie. Recordings to be saved in SharePoint and OneDrive, not Stream. I would love it. Shout out in chat if you've ever gotten through recording a meeting, but you had some external folks in there, and you send them the link to the stream recording and they're like, I can't do this. Sorry, you don't have access. Right? Have we all felt that pain? I know I have. Teams chat and collaboration, the big one in my mind, Richard, I think you agree, is having the home site app inside of Teams.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. You know, the more I should say, the less that I need to pivot out of the Teams app to go and find something or, you know, actually get something done, the better, as far as I'm concerned. So yes, having that full, your entire intranet site, home site, be able to just be considered a personal app in Teams, love it. Can't wait.
We've been cheating for a while by adding like the website tab and linking to a SharePoint site or putting the news there, but you don't get all of your navigation. So this is just going to make life that much better. If I have any corporate communications people listening to my voice, joining on the webinar, oh, just hold tight, because you're going to have that full, rich experience right there inside of Teams. It's going to be great. Teams templates. Yes, you heard that. Yes. Templates for your team. So if you need a certain type of team, Microsoft is working on having templates just ready for you to deploy and have it right at a click away. Awesome.
Yeah, you could always kind of create a team from an existing team so far. You've had that capability, but has its limitations. Now you'll definitely be able to go much, much further with that and create different types of templates for different scenarios and so forth, and have them set up in a way to where you can allow people to be able to go create their new teams from that template, and then they're off and running, because everything that you had there, everything you set up in there will just be in place. It's great.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic. And definitely not least in all of these is the fact that Microsoft Search is, dare I say, finally coming to Teams.
Yeah, it's okay to say that.
Oh, because it's been a pain point.
Yeah, we definitely, we definitely, and our customers definitely have expressed that the search experience in Teams has been a bit lacking. They have certainly made some improvements on that with contextual searching now. You can control F inside of chat or inside of a channel and be able to get more relevant results specific to that chat or that channel in that case. But still, it's still just not as great as it could be. So yeah, looking forward to having Microsoft Search really tied into Teams now.
And I think it's worth mentioning that there are a lot of well-being features that are going to be coming into Teams. There's going to be a virtual commute. Now, I don't know about you all, but my commute, it used to be drinking my coffee, remembering how to use words before I got to an office. And then on the way home, it was probably blaring music to get rid of the frustration of the day.
Right.
No. But it's interesting. I think we're going to see some good things coming out of that, because staring at a screen all day, and if you're like me and Richard, I think I've noticed you do this too. We've got the selfie light here, so it doesn't look like we're sitting in a dark dungeon.
Right.
Wears on you.
Yep.
If you're still trying to figure out how to create an office in your home, and right now you're at your living room, coffee table, or the kitchen table, or the kitchen counter, that means you never leave work. That can wear on you. So there's going to be some ways to kind of bring some balance to your day through Teams, since that's the app where more and more our day has its beginning, middle, and end. So I think that's good to see. Yeah,
it's nice that, where My Analytics has been something available to E3 and up customers now for quite some time, and it's got some nice parts to it that try to help you understand your work patterns and then make some recommendations based off of how you're working. If it sees that you're, spending a number of hours after normal working hours reading emails and et cetera, it tries to make some recommendations of things for you to change. So it's nice to see that they're going to be pulling in even more of those kinds of things into the context of Teams, because again, that's where we're spending so much more of our working collaborative productivity time. But I guess it'll be interesting just to see how that all works out over time. It'll be interesting to see how Microsoft continues to evolve those well-being features.
My favorite My Analytics email was, it got onto me for basically, I can't remember the exact words, but bugging my coworkers by responding to emails after hours. I was like, well, they're the one that sent it to me. Go talk to them.
Exactly.
Whatever. All right. So if a picture is worth 1,000 words, a video should be better. So custom layouts for meetings. I totally took this off the Tech Community article about the Teams stuff. Let me hit play again. I forgot to set that to loop. So you'll be able to choose where you see the people, where the people see you, and the content. So that'll be pretty groovy. Definitely looking forward to that. I love this guy. This will probably be what I do. That feels very, I don't know, Walter Cronkite.
Yeah, it's definitely got the news reporter kind of vibe happening there, but but I think it's great. Yeah.
Let's see what else we got. The breakout rooms. So, and this is just a screenshot again that I stole from Microsoft because we don't have it yet. But you'll be able to have a huge meeting, a big meeting, doesn't have to be huge, but you can create these breakout rooms where basically your teams can go work on stuff. And then towards the end of the meeting, when they're done with their brainstorming, to come back and present, you know, their opinions, their findings, their solutions. The presenter, well, the presenter can do a few things. The presenter can move between the rooms just to check in, see how things are going, maybe bring people back on topic if needed, and then can bring everyone back together into the main meeting. So I could really see this being the move for the virtual world to take us into those true department brainstorming sessions that I kind of feel like we're missing a lot since we've gone completely virtual.
Yeah, definitely. You know, for large organizations that have, you know, maybe an annual sales offsite or something like that, where, you know, historically you got your entire sales team together for 2 or 3 days to powwow about what you're going to get ready for the next year. You know, oftentimes those types of conferences, if you will, would have been in a large room and everybody would be all together. And then there'd be parts of the day where you'd ask everyone to break up and go and, you know, brainstorm various things about certain offerings, et cetera, and then you'd get them all back together again. Well, now the ability just to do that virtually here inside of Teams, that's going to be amazing, quite honestly, because that's not something that would have been nearly easy to do it if at all before.
And this was another one of those things as they were talking about and demonstrating it. I just thought, wow, it just goes to show how much the product team is investing on making virtual work better. And they're doing it so fast. We're 6 months in, they're very quickly.
Yeah, and you might have said this, I missed it, I apologize, but I think this probably came, you know, starting off from the education space, because classrooms, you know, in a virtual environment where a teacher needed to have the ability for the students to obviously participate in the class, but then at times kind of break off into their own little pods to go figure out some kind of an assignment of some sorts, and then maybe even hop around from one little pod to another, but then everybody gets back together again and talks about the things they learned. It came from that paradigm, and I think it's just perfectly applicable in this case to what we do in business, obviously. So yeah, again, really, really great feature. There's one question that came from Matthew again. It was back on talking about home sites. He asked, when home sites gets released, will it just happen, or do you have to do something with PowerShell or whatever to enable it? And I don't know if I know the answer to that right off the bat. I would venture to guess it's going to require some action on an administrator's part, probably because you have to know what to set it to, right? At the very least, what is considered to be the home
PowerShell, but that's just because they always do PowerShell to us.
Yeah, exactly. So probably can bet that there's going to be some PowerShell to enable something. And then because it's an app that shows up in that left-hand rail, it probably will likely also have some kind of a Teams admin and the Teams admin UI component of some sorts. But yeah, not exactly sure. We'll keep our ear out for that and let you know if we hear something, Matthew.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So meeting details. Work smarter, not harder, right? Teams is going to make that so much easier. So on the details, that meeting recap is going to be there for you. You'll see your participants over here under tracking. Anything that was shared would be here. You notice you have a transcript. That's fantastic. So it's taking recordings, it's giving us a transcript and any notes that were used and documents that were shared all in one place. Nice.
Yeah.
Just a nice way to finesse it.
From what I saw, or at least from what I read too in the blog, is it said that recap is also going to be just sort of automatically appear inside of the event, the meeting invite in Outlook, which I just think is also super cool, right? Because again, let's say you didn't get a chance to attend that meeting, depending on where you are, if you're in your Outlook calendar, or obviously if you're in calendar and Teams, but you know, if you're in the Outlook calendar, the ability to go and view that calendar, that past meeting invite inside of your calendar, but then all of a sudden see all the recap info right there. I mean, that's, again, that is something that everybody would have loved to have had some amazing solution for in the past, but that's just going to be a really welcomed addition to meetings.
And I think part of this too, to really make this useful, is we need to start using the meeting notes that Teams provides for us.
Yeah.
I'm still seeing we tend to not, like, we all take our own, or maybe we go put it somewhere else, but I think really starting to use the tools that are right here inside of our Teams meeting will just enhance the options that we have just built right into Teams.
Yeah. And Lisa Jo just asked, this is for private meetings and not channel meetings, correct? And I don't know the answer to that, actually. Assuming that it's for meetings that that at the very least are considered private meetings where you're setting them up and they are connected to your calendar and so forth, then yeah, I'm assuming they would show up there at the very least. But for channel meetings or like Meet Now, where you just set up a Meet Now, and there's not like an invite. Well, now that I think about it, if it's going to show up in your feed still, though, if it's going to show up inside your chat history, I kind of think it would. I'm not sure.
It will.
Yeah.
I could see that it may not if you're in chat and you hit the call button. Because you never really did a meeting. So just that ad hoc thing. But I believe it would apply to our channel meetings as well, because there is officially a meeting created for that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Matthew also said it would be helpful to know what we all agreed upon in a meeting to make sure we can move forward with the correct requirements, agenda, et cetera. Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think it's great. It certainly at the very least, you could put in notes as an example, kind of, you know, as prominently as you can to say, these were the decisions that were made from this, and these are the next actions and things of that nature. But I could see that being a really cool enhancement request for the recap, to be able to have somewhere here that prominently displays the kind of at least bulleted list of these were the primary decisions that came out of that meeting, or, you know, actions, et cetera. I think that would be cool.
Or what about tasks? Meeting tasks.
Definitely. Definitely. Yep.
Hey,
yep.
I'm going to the user voice.
That's right. Yeah. That can link to anywhere. That
here.
maybe they link to planner tasks, or maybe they get tied back into Microsoft lists for various types of information, you know, whatever it may be. I think there's a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah. And great thing for this is Beth had to decline. We don't know why. Maybe she was double booked. Now she can just come to this meeting in her chat and see everything that was shared, read through the transcript, watch the recording, whichever she prefers. If you're like me, you watch through the recording at a little faster than the normal pace. Just get through it. Yeah, it's gonna be cool. Matthew, here's the home site app. So yes, don't know for sure exactly how we will point this to Teams, but I'm gonna guess it's gonna be that process to register a site as your home site. That may be all that's needed to then have it available as the home site app inside of Teams. Or as Richard said, there may be that additional step of going into the Teams admin center and saying, this site, this is the one I want. I don't care which site's registered.
Right.
More to come.
Yeah, I really can appreciate in this screenshot, though, how they put the home site app as the top app in the left-hand rail in this case. Really, again, just trying to drive home that this can and will be likely considered a prominent app within most organizations, you know, in line with all of the other Teams app that you obviously use on a day-to-day basis as you're using Teams. So yeah, something to really, you know, be thinking about if you don't have SharePoint as a primary company portal intranet type site today. Maybe something to be thinking about, right?
Yeah, call us. We can help you do that.
We could. That's right. We definitely could. Yeah, certainly could.
But you know, we've got a lot of clients that have been concerned with the rollout of Teams that their intranet home will die. How do we drive the traffic to the home site? How do we make sure the news out there is being consumed? How do we make sure people are getting it? You know, we've put a lot of time and effort. How do we, and again, we used to cheat with a tab. Now we're not going to have to. And it continues to make that SharePoint homepage, you know, a valuable and easy to get to resource for that organization.
Absolutely.
I love it.
You know, Joy briefly mentioned it, and I teased you all with it, obviously, in the poll, and we actually forgot to put a whole slide for this. But the kind of the big news, if you're not aware, as of yesterday, your organization administrator can effectively go into your tenant. It's a PowerShell thing, of course, and make a change to where Teams recordings will no longer be stored in Microsoft Stream, but they can be stored in OneDrive or SharePoint instead. And so for those of you that maybe were kind of caught off guard by that question, that was one of the big announcements at Ignite. And it ties into the fact that Microsoft also spent a lot of time announcing kind of a reimagining of how Microsoft Stream is actually going to be delivered, and just kind of the underlying bits of that inside of Microsoft 365. They're kind of reimagining and rebuilding all of that infrastructure, if you will, still tying into Azure Media Services and all of that, but making it more integrated with the rest of the Microsoft 365 apps and tools. So as we all know, again, as users of Teams and when we're in Teams meetings and we record those Teams meetings, you know that is being powered by Microsoft Stream. That's what's handling the recording of those. So whereas in the past, they simply got stored in Stream, and as Joy mentioned earlier, by far one of the biggest complaints from every company who has participated as a guest of someone else's Microsoft Teams private meeting, when that meeting was recorded, and even though it showed up inside the meeting chat, the chat history rather, in Teams, you could see it. It showed up, the recording is completed. If you were a guest on that person's tenant from their meeting and you clicked on it, you just got this big error message that just said, the video cannot be displayed or found or something like that. And it has everything to do with permissions and so forth. So you just didn't have access to them. So Microsoft has addressed that challenge by allowing you to now have the meetings recording stored inside of either OneDrive or SharePoint, in which case then, just like any other file or document, you have the ability to easily share that with guests or external users. You can either do that proactively, or that guest can request access to that video after the recording of the meeting has been recorded. So that's, I believe, at least Joy, you and I understand that correctly. I think that's the number one reason why they're making that change. The truth is, there's a whole other slew of benefits that you'll get from having those video files now actually stored in OneDrive or SharePoint, because again, they'll be treated just like any other type of file. So you'll be able to apply retention policies, and again, any other type of file management that you expect, you'll be able to do that now with video recordings because they're stored in OneDrive as opposed to in Stream. And the last thing I'll say about it, just for clarity, is the way it's supposed to work is once you've enabled this, you can obviously run a quick test or obviously have a Teams meeting. What'll happen is the person who clicks record, that's the key. Whoever is clicking record, that is the person whose OneDrive that meeting recording will be stored in. So it'll create a kind of a top level, root level folder called recordings in your OneDrive site, and then those recordings will be stored there. If you are the organizer of a meeting, but someone else in your company clicks record, then again, that they are the one who their OneDrive is where it'll be stored because they were the one that clicked record. But as the organizer, you will also have access immediately to that recording so that you can edit it or share it with others. So there's a couple of nuances in terms of the way that works, but just know that that's effectively what'll happen is it'll get stored in OneDrive. If you're doing Teams recordings from an actual team, in this case, like a channel meeting, then I believe those recordings get stored in the SharePoint site. Similar paradigm in a recordings folder. But yeah, super exciting, and I'm trying to test that out myself. I enabled it in a demo tenant this morning, and so far it hasn't taken effect. I think maybe it may take a little time for it to roll through.
The timer job's got to fire.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Hurry up and wait.
So Lisa Jo said, what would be stored in Stream going forward? Nothing then. Well, in this case, this is really just applicable for meeting recordings. So if you make this change, the Teams meeting recordings again would be stored in OneDrive or SharePoint as opposed to Stream. But Stream will still be a prominent service inside of Microsoft 365 for any and all the things that companies have used Stream for outside of meetings. So the ability to be able to create, training recordings or any type of video that obviously you're using to share news or other informations across the company, you'll still be able to use Stream in this new way. They're creating a new Stream portal for that matter. That's going to kind of make it even easier for you to be able to curate channels and content, etc. But and if I understand it correctly, you could still technically take your recordings from meetings and kind of upload them back into Stream if you wanted to share them kind of more broadly inside the organization. But yeah, they're splitting those two things apart, again, for all the reasons we just discussed. So.
Yep. And usually top of my mind when it comes to stream too is safety content, videos, instructions on PPE. You know, if that's something you have inside of your organization, your safety department, you know, has demonstration videos. Still, that is still going to be a big thing for use there. And then, of course, that beautiful stream web part that goes so pretty on our SharePoint pages.
Yep. And then Lisa Jo asked another follow-up, can you move it from OneDrive to a site if you don't really want it in OneDrive? And so a couple of thoughts on that. Number one, you certainly can. Again, the fact that it's going to be a file like any other file means that you'll have the ability to manage it. And you can, just like you can take a sort of a private document today that's in your OneDrive, and then you can copy and or move it over into a SharePoint team site. You can absolutely do that. I will say, though, the thought to consider is that because these videos will now be stored in OneDrive or SharePoint, they will in fact count against your storage quota for those two services. So again, as we know in OneDrive, you have a very generous, by default, 1 terabyte per user of storage inside of OneDrive. And of course, that can be expanded if you really needed it to. So there's a lot of storage there for videos, which I think is why they're defaulting to the recordings going into OneDrive. But if you choose to store those videos in SharePoint, remember that your organization at the tenant level has a shared pool of allocated storage for SharePoint data. And while you can always purchase more, you have a certain amount based off of the number of licensed users that you have in the organization. So if you continue to store a number of videos inside of SharePoint, it can start to add up, especially if they're long video recordings over time and start to take up that storage. So, but again, the good news is because they're going to be files, you can set up retention policies and other types of ways to manage. Maybe you either archive or delete old videos over time so that you can free up that, you know, valuable SharePoint storage for other working documents, et cetera, that you need for. Okay.
Because I would say the shelf life for a meeting is probably not going to be super long. So definitely don't feel we have to hold on to those forever. Yep. All right. Any other questions?
There was one more. Yep, there was one more from Lisa Jo again. She said, good info, thanks on that one. You're welcome. She said, Lisa works for a company with many independent businesses in one tenant. And could each designate their own home site, or can it only be one for the whole tenant?
So my gut's going to tell me it's going to be one.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
But yeah, would be actually interested to, if you're wanting to have a conversation about some of those challenges, Lisa Jo, about working inside of a company that has a number of independent companies inside of one tenant, because that can certainly be a challenge. Reach out to us. Yeah, would love to be able to hear what some of those challenges are and see if we can come up with some creative ways to alleviate that, because that's definitely, there are some basic aspects of Microsoft 365 that kind of assume your company is in one tenant and that there aren't other companies in there as well. But yeah, that's an interesting one.
All right. Well, we appreciate everyone joining in today to hear our recap of Ignite and see how the direction of Teams and SharePoint is still #better together. And they're really bringing our intelligent intranets together. Lots of good stuff coming up. Lots of other good announcements out there for Yammer, Power Platform. Good stuff is happening all around. Thank you for taking time out of your day. Please do feel free to reach out to us on social media. We've got our email addresses here, our Twitter handles. You can also find me at JoyofSharePoint on Instagram as well. So look forward to connecting with all of you out on the social sphere.
Yep. Thanks so much for joining, and we look forward to talking to you guys again soon. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.